you will find this presentation equally significant and important to you. So, Forrester Research did a survey asking organizations what was driving the need for continuous delivery. And what they found was one of the top drivers, as it always is reducing costs, right? But no matter what era you are in the IT industry, reducing costs is always there. But after that was the need to improve the capabilities of the organization's products and services. Also increasing expectations from customers. And I think that all of us can see this in our own personal lives as well as our business lives, as the consumer IT is driving a lot of the motivation and a lot of what we are asked to do in the professional and business world of IT too, because people become accustomed to these new types of features and ways of interacting with technology. Also competition against your products and services. We had a similar event that we're holding here today in New York City last week, and one of the speakers at that event was from Fidelity Investments, a global organization that helps people manage for their futures and manage for retirement and so forth. And the speaker from Fidelity said the driver for the Fidelity Investments was the fact that new young organizations were competing with them, and they were able to deliver new capabilities extremely fast, and they were able to beat them to market with new capabilities and new ways of interacting with their customers. They could feel the competition nipping at their butts, and they knew they had to do something. They knew the traditional old ways of delivering software simply were not able to cut it any longer in this new world that we're in today. And so they started, bravely enough on their own, a continuous delivery project within their organization. This is a massive organization. This is not, a couple of hundred IT folks. This is a massive IT organization. This is 10,000 IT people. And what they did was they organized around product groupings and organized around those product groupings and let those product groupings teams decide what technologies they were going to use, what processes they were going to use. And then the central group was supporting them with those technologies and with those capabilities. And that's the approach they took. The point is that they recognized as an organization, as a business, that they needed to move in a very different way than they had in the past if they were going to survive. And so I think that's what you see here is competition against products and services. Similar thing. Many of you are probably facing that today because with many of the new capabilities, technologies, services, and so forth, it's very easy for young startup organizations to be able to compete long-standing traditional enterprises in new ways that the longer traditional enterprises are unable to compete with. And so think about that in terms of your organization and whether or not your processes, your ways of doing things, there's no value you compete with. And we can see this sort of disruption everywhere. This is an example from a bank in the U.S. called USAA. Interesting thing about the USAA bank is that its target market are military personnel, U.S. military personnel around the world. And so they focus many of their services on the U.S. military soldier, sailor, et cetera. And so back in 2009, because these military personnel were dispersed throughout the world, this USAA bank actually took the lead in introducing mobile check deposit capabilities. At that time, many of their competitors viewed it as a novelty thing, not something that was going to be required. But because they had a very specific target market that they needed to satisfy, they decided they were going to take the lead and introduce they did successfully in 2009. Well, simply two years later, 1 in 4 consumers wanted mobile check deposit, and 1 in 2 mobile banking users wanted to be able to deposit checks on a mobile basis. So you can see that once this was introduced and people became aware of it being available technologically, and of course the fact that everybody's becoming more mobile oriented, consumers started to demand it. A year later, 65% of consumers, at least somewhat likely to switch to banks in order to get mobile deposits. So it's becoming even more of a driver for banks. And today, mobile deposit capabilities is table stakes for most banks. It's not even something that differentiates them today. So if you don't have mobile check deposits, as a bank, you're seen as uncompetitive with the other banks that are in your market. So this is an example of how consumer IT and the consumer orientation towards technology is driving a lot of what we in enterprise IT organizations need to deliver. And of course, it's also being driven by lots of other technologies like mobile and cloud applications that are really driving this trend. I'm sure that many of you in your own organizations have projects today that are predominantly mobile UI oriented and potentially even cloud oriented in order to provide that level of innovation and service to your customers. So, social media and online searching driving the need for new systems of engagement to deal with your customers in a way that they expect. The new ways of interacting with your customers, new ways of interacting with your partners, your salespeople, your other employees in your organization, all being driven by the way that they're dealing with other organizations, and it's driving you and your IT organization to respond more rapidly. Many organizations, as I mentioned earlier, especially younger organizations coming to market, are using cloud technologies to allow them to innovate more quickly. But I think that for organizations such as yours, the real value in these new systems comes from its ability to interact with traditional systems of record. After all, that's where your data is. That's where the value of your organization is. So layering these new systems on top of those traditional transactional systems are where you're going to be able to really deliver the value to your markets. But at the same time, we have all this demand. We know that organizations are struggling to keep up. If you look at this research, again from Forrester research, what you can see is at the bottom of the chart there, the predominance of organizations typically are delivering 2 to 4 releases per year, and some are delivering less than 1 release per year. This is clearly not going to be able to keep up with the demand that's being generated by many of these trends in business and in technology. And so that's why I think that we're all here today, is to talk about, okay, how can we do it differently? We all know that we've got great minds and great technologies. How do we put that all together to deliver and meet the business needs that are being driven by customers? Well, I think that the ability to deliver faster is really also has some tremendous value, and it's not simply that you're delivering those capabilities more quickly, but it also gives you the opportunity to close the loop. Continuous delivery is not simply about delivering software faster, although a lot of it is associated with that. The value comes in the ability to get feedback on what you have delivered in a very short period of time, and deliver that feedback back to the developers and back to the business, so they understand the impact of that business, of that change. We all know the more traditional way of delivering software, where you had massive requirements documents that were created and turned over to developers who were then responsible for delivering on that massive set of requirements. And by the time that code got delivered and put into the hands of customers, 75% of those features were never even used or touched because they simply didn't add the expected value to the end user. And so this notion of being able to deliver software more quickly in a more continuous fashion, getting faster feedback, allows you to perform releases in smaller batches, and also to be able to get more immediate feedback on that capability that you've just delivered, so you understand whether it added value to the end user or didn't, so that you don't continue to make more investment in features that aren't going to be used. And so this is the value of this is that you produce less waste and less cost because you don't have a lot of this work in process going on before you deliver value out to the end user, and you're able to measure that. And faster feedback means better results to customers more quickly. It means happier customers, and of course happier customers means increased revenue, increased profits, and that's where the business and the technology really come together, when you can deliver those kinds of results. But we all know that in order to do that, we have to do things differently. And we know that there are organizations today that are leading the charge, leading the way with continuous delivery. But they're using a different approach. And they're using this rapid feedback approach that really helps them to drive innovation, to drive solutions, and to do it in a very cost-effective way because they drive minimal and small feature sets, get feedback on that, either make a change to that feature set or to move on to the next feature set to add value. So this concept of small batches, which comes from the manufacturing industry, where they found out that when people could focus on a particular problem set or a particular phase in the manufacturing process, they could become very, very good at it and deliver very, very high quality. And so the ability to deliver these smaller feature sets to market faster now becomes the basis for delivering innovation very, very quickly and being able to minimize cost while you're doing it because you know that you're delivering features that are going to be valued by the end users. It also helps to dissolve silos, the silos that you have in your organization today, because in order to approach the speed that's required to deliver this innovation, you need to be working together in a more collaborative way, in a collaborative environment. You eliminate these handoffs between teams because there's a lot of time waste in the hands-off process itself, let alone the work that takes place in each process. So dissolving these silos really is a core feature of continuous delivery because it really requires that everybody work together in a continuous process. The continuous process from the time a change is committed by a developer to the point in time where that change is delivered into production. The other concept here is the fact that, and you can all see it coming, right? When I was talking about the massive requirement stocks that we used to be accustomed to, less planning means more doing. And so this idea that you trade off less planning and do more, but do it in smaller batches so that you can actually understand that change and the impact that change is having. This is a core capability. So all about delivering innovation more quickly and doing it in a time frame that allows you to understand its impact. It also gives your business, and again, you're going to hear us talk all day long about the business aspect of this because the business is a big part of the driver behind continuous delivery, is this ability to pivot. What do we mean by that? You've all heard the term business agility. That's what pivot means. It's the ability to actually make a change very quickly before you've got a lot invested in a particular set of capabilities or particular application before you know what its actual impact is going to be. So think of continuous delivery as the ability now for you as an organization to deliver small features very quickly and giving your business the ability, based on the feedback, to actually pivot and move and change very, very quickly. So continuous delivery is reshaping our approach to delivering software in a timely fashion to really support the needs of the business. we see this change already happening. This is a quote from William Gibson, which is very appropriate here. It says, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." And so what that means is that there are people doing this already and are having great success at it. That success is not evenly distributed amongst all of the organizations today. But one thing you can be assured of is that the storm is coming, and that storm is going to affect everyone. And eventually, in order to survive, organizations are going to have to really rethink the way that they're delivering software. We can see some of these companies like Amazon, Netflix, Instagram, and Etsy. These are, of course, new age organizations. They've got very, very little traditional IT legacy, if you will, that they need to worry about, and so they've had more or less a greenfield approach. However, you can say that Amazon, when they first started, looked like a more traditional organization, but today they are very, very, very different. And in fact, they're releasing new capabilities every 11.6 seconds and are the leader in public cloud infrastructure. And if you read all of the reports about Amazon Web Services and the leadership position that they have in that market, it's really pretty impressive what they've been able to do in the cloud services market. And the reason they're doing that is because they're releasing new capabilities, new services, new features very, very rapidly. And as I mentioned, one thing I do want to state while I'm on this slide is, it's not just for new age organizations. I mentioned the example earlier of Fidelity Investments. Many traditional organizations who have the wherewithal within their own businesses to recognize we need to do something different are actually now progressing on this. We're going to hear from Harold later from Bosch about what Bosch is doing in this area as well. So it's continuous delivery, as I mentioned, is not just about technology. It's not about people collaborating. It's also about process and optimizing the value delivery stream. And if you, I mentioned the Phoenix Project book earlier, and there's a really monumental point in that book where the team, the software delivery team is sitting in a room, if you will. So imagine this, they're all sitting in a room, and they are trying to figure out how they're going to make some changes to their processes. And so they start putting these sticky notes on the wall that define each of the steps in the process. And the interesting thing is that most of those steps were in the heads of people who weren't even in scripts or anything. They were simply in people's heads. So they started, the first thing they needed to do was to get it on paper. And so they start putting sticky notes all around the room that defines the process. And then underneath each one of those processes, they would put the steps, and they would put the time it takes for steps. And then the most interesting thing they did is they also put between each of the steps the time it took from one step to another, the wait time, if you will, that it took as they handed the process over either to another team or to another person or whatever. And what they found was a lot of there was a lot of optimization they could do in each of the steps, but it really exposed the wasted time between steps. And they first attacked the wasted time between steps because that was the easiest way to approach that. And that they found that they gained an incredible amount of time and reduced the time to deliver simply by attacking the wasteful time between steps. And that's what this slide really talks about, is how can you eliminate the time between steps as a first point of attack, because this is where a lot of waste occurs. Forrester Research also recently issued a report called the 8 Tenets of Faster Application Delivery. And so the first tenet, as you would expect, is to create a delivery pipeline. So what do we mean there? What they mean by that is you have to create your process. You have to know what your process is. Before you can deal with any of this, you really have to know what your process is. And if you're like, your organization happens to be like the the organization, the fictional organization in the Phoenix Project, a lot of that process is in the heads of people, and you need to get that down on paper. That's really the first step. And so even though you may have some of that process in scripts, and it's important to really draw that all out. Draw the end-to-end pipeline out on paper. Start with the point in time where a developer commits a change to an application, all the way through the build and the testing process, all the way through to staging, all the way through to production. I think that when you understand the process and you can see it on paper, it really is the foundation of helping you to deal with the continuous delivery process, which is all about optimizing that entire value delivery stream. The next key tenet is to automate, and a lot of what you're going to hear today is going to be on the automation topic, because it's automate, automate, automate. This is probably one of the key tenets of continuous delivery, is the ability to automate. Automation gives you the ability to structure your delivery process, to automate the steps, take the human and manual processes out as much as possible. We all know that there are going to be steps where that may not be possible, but automate as much as you can do, especially in the testing process. So the next step is to use continuous testing. So I mentioned this earlier. You cannot do continuous delivery until you're doing continuous testing. If you're not doing continuous testing, you're just kidding yourselves about continuous delivery, because the testing process has to be a fundamental part of ensuring the quality of your releases, and therefore continuous testing is a key component to this. We have folks from SOSTA here who are in that business, and they'll be talking later, but you can also meet with them outside. The next step is this notion of loosely coupled architectures. And the reason for that is it really enables you to eliminate as much change as possible when you do have to make some modifications to the UI or to the underlying application. Utilizing loosely coupled architectures allow you to really be able to have minimal impact when you do make a change on other parts of the application. And so a software-oriented architecture with lots of APIs is also a key part and one of Forrester's key tenets for continuous delivery. You may have heard of this infamous Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, memo that went out many years ago, where he demanded that every capability be accessed by an API, because this now opens up the application not only to developers to make smaller modifications, but also has less impact when a change is made. It also opens up the application to others. So you may have partners that may have a different idea on how to interact and interface with those capabilities. It also gives you that capability as well. The next aspect is to treat infrastructure as code. This really relates to the automation aspect, and really has to do with being able to configure and spin up and provision the servers that are required for the application for staging or for final production, and to be able to version that configuration and treat it as code. And so we've got people here from Puppet Labs who are going to be talking extensively about treating infrastructure as code and giving you the ability, much like you do with your applications, the software associated with your applications, to actually version that configuration, so that if you have problems with a particular version, you understand what that configuration looked like, and go back and make those changes and reversion it, retest it, and ensure that it meets specifications and requirements. And it also gives you the ability so that you know that a particular application was tested against a particular version of infrastructure, and it all worked together, and you understand what that pairing is. Another key tenet is eliminating release drama. Again, in the book, The Phoenix Project, the book is about this internal project they call Project Phoenix, which was about releasing an e-commerce system on top of their core systems. And you talk about release drama, this book is full of release drama. In fact, when Professor Hagen had the picture of the airplane crash all in flames, that's sort of the picture that came to my mind when I read the Phoenix Project. And I'm sure many of you have similar visuals in your mind of releases that your organization has done that were extreme failures. But the whole idea here with continuous delivery, by defining process, by defining testing and getting that testing automating everything, getting manual and human hands out of it, is to release and eliminate the release drama. Because the more confidence we can build into the release process, the more confidence we can build into the application, the features being released through continuous testing, the less drama we're going to have when it comes time to release. And then the final tenet is about using faster delivery to drive business strategy and execution. This goes back to something I was saying earlier, which is, by delivering these capabilities to the business more rapidly, IT is just naturally going to become an integral part of the business. You're going to find that they're going to be coming to you asking for new ways to deliver new capabilities and new features once they recognize that you're able to actually deliver in a timely fashion what they need to be successful in the marketplace, and giving them that immediate feedback on the success or failure of that feature. And in fact, a lot of what Professor Hagen was saying earlier about an organization's ability to accept innovation, to accept some of the risk associated with trying new things, this is really all part of this. But the smaller the feature set that you deliver, the less risk that you're actually taking, because you're not making giant investments in time and resources and dollars and to actually deliver that feature set. You're making it as minimal as possible. You're getting that innovation out, and you're seeing what the feedback is. You're delivering that feedback back to the business, and all of a sudden now, the business and IT feel like one. We talked about this notion of small batch approach and this work in process management approach. And the idea here is that these sprints or these small batches really provide a very convenient way to manage the delivery of small feature sets and being able to get that feedback on that feature set very quickly back to the business. Infrastructure as code. I touched on this earlier. It's the ability to really establish that environment, establish the configuration, and to install everything that's required, and to be able to package that up into a configuration that can be versioned and can be repeatable. And as I mentioned, we've got a couple of vendors here today, Midvision and Puppet Labs, who are in this kind of business, so be sure to talk to them about this. But this is where you're going to be able to take all of that work that you're doing today that might be in scripts, might be in people's heads, might be in Excel spreadsheets, and you're going to be able to actually automate all of that and deliver it as a unit and version it, and be able to understand what that version actually delivers and its ability to actually support the application and support both the staging environment, the production environment, and therefore you know that if you need to replicate that environment, this is the version of that configuration that's required. The automation is what drives continuous delivery. I mentioned this earlier. So Jenkins is a continuous integration server. It's been utilized by developers for many years now to automate the development process, the build of the actual software, the testing of the software up to a certain degree. And quite honestly, development teams have been ahead of the curve in automating their processes for quite some time now. It is now on the operations or DevOps teams now that are looking at their developer counterparts and trying to learn from them how to automate the the rest of the delivery process. And so I encourage you, if you're not using Jenkins today, take a look at Jenkins. At CloudBees, we are the Jenkins company. We understand this notion of automating processes extremely well. Jenkins is the world's most popular open source continuous integration server being used by developers around the world. Jenkins is now being also used to actually extend beyond the development and testing processes into the delivery process of that application out to production. Excuse me. But as I mentioned, you really cannot achieve continuous delivery until you have automated all of your key steps in the pipeline. I know this chart is an eye chart. We'll be giving you these slides so that you can actually read these, but the point of the chart is to call out the fact that you must automate all the processes. Jenkins provides that sort of hub of continuous delivery automation that allows you to tailor it to your specific needs and purposes, but also allows you to plug in many of the technologies and tools that you're using today or desire to use in the future. It's probably one of the most open platforms on the market. We talked a bit about continuous testing, and a lot of continuous testing concerns itself with API testing. So as you deliver applications that are much more oriented towards APIs and delivered through APIs, it is now important that you be able to test these APIs, and as you test that entire application. And so this is a new era for testing, the API testing era. And so our partner SOSTA has been doing this and can provide you with a great deal of help and experience in setting up API testing, because it is important that you be able to test the entire application, and that involves testing all of these APIs that make up that application. Applications are no longer monolithic. They're all composites of APIs, and these APIs interact with each other. And so it's important that you be able to test down to this level to ensure that you have a level of confidence in the application as you deliver it. So I think that one of the interesting things about continuous delivery is that it really moves us from this notion of maximizing utilization to maximizing throughput, which is what we're all looking for, which is what the business is looking for. Maximizing utilization actually, as a notion, maximizes work in process and therefore maximizes waste as well. So with the notion of maximizing utilization, everyone is as busy as possible. The work is partially completed at any point in time, and so what happens? You wind up, in order to deliver, you typically are eliminating some of that work in process and from the release, and you go with what's done. And unfortunately, that leads to a lot of waste. It leads to a lot of technical debt because you've got features that are incomplete. And so this is where all of the waste associated with work in process comes from. So the more you have this, the more delays you have, the more handoffs, the more documents that have to be created to document all of this, and it just creates delay. And it creates a great deal of inefficiency. And so being able to shift from a notion and a concept of maximum utilization to one of maximizing throughput really is what's going to give you that ability to deliver faster, to deliver the kinds of agility and pivot ability that your organizations are looking for. It actually moves work through the pipeline much more quickly, and even though people perhaps are less busy, they're actually getting more work done because there's less scrap. They're not working on features and capabilities that are never going to be delivered. And so this gives them more time available to focus on what's really important and getting what's important done more quickly. So typical benefits that can be realized in moving from maximizing utilization to maximizing throughput is shifting from infrastructure as art to infrastructure as code. We talked about, this idea that, your provisioning of infrastructure in many cases is, you've got one or two people that can do that. And, what you want to do is shift to an era where you've got infrastructure as code, and you can manage it much like a developer manages the version of an application. The similar concepts apply here. And so it helps you to reduce incidents in production due to configuration errors because perhaps somebody missed a step on a spreadsheet, or elimination of it works fine in my environment, doesn't work in yours. Well, yours might be different. Well, if it were organized as code and set up as code, it's extremely replicable, and therefore there's no discussion about works in mine, doesn't work in yours. It also helps to reduce the mean time to repair because you understand what that configuration looks like, and there's no doubt about the parameters around that configuration. Moving from small batches to, from big batches to small batches, maximizing utilization to maximizing throughput, decreasing scrap, reducing work due to work in process. Faster cycle time leads to reduced mean time to repair, and faster time to feedback results in better and higher quality solutions. Moving from manual builds to continuous integration, and from manual testing to automated API-driven testing. Again, this is all about automating the entire process. It helps to reduce the labor cost, improve the consistency, and that's really what we're trying to get here, is a process that delivers consistency across the entire value stream. And it's not just about automating provisioning, it's not just about automating the build process, it's not just about automating testing, it's about automating all of that and being able to rely on it to deliver quality software. When you can rely on all that automation throughout the entire process, now you've got a higher confidence level in the software that's being produced. Some of the typical performance measures that are being used are cycle time, which is purely the time it takes to go from idea to business value realization, or the idea to delivery into production. Reducing that cycle time is what gives you the responsiveness your business is looking for. Innovation rate is the percentage of application development time being spent on new features versus existing applications and maintaining existing applications. Again, your business is looking for those new innovative ways to interact with customers and partners and so forth. And it's not about maintaining the old application. So continuous delivery is all about delivering this very, very quickly. Revenue acceleration or lost revenue avoidance. Again, the more quickly you can deliver to the business, the more the business can take advantage of that new market opportunity or the ability to compete with a competitive threat that they might be seeing. Customer satisfaction scores, net recommender scores, app ratings, these are all measurements of how well you're doing in meeting the expectations of the end users, and may be part of your feedback loop in understanding how that feature has impacted the satisfaction scores or net recommender scores. We touched on mean time to repair, and so again, this is going to be another key way for you to measure the impact that continuous delivery is having on your organization, by understanding if that mean time to repair is going down because you're having less incidents, and that when you do have an incident, it's easier to understand where it's coming from. Another interesting one is the revenue per application delivery employee. So for all of the employees in the entire cycle, okay, how much revenue is each one of those people generating? This is a great way to measure the economic productivity of the entire delivery organization. And then finally, we touched on technical debt. Technical debt is that work that builds up as you delay features and as you partially deliver capabilities that someone needs to go back and work on. And so less technical debt means less risk and improved reliability. So in summary, continuous delivery is driving the application delivery agenda for virtually every organization, certainly many of the ones that we're talking to, and in fact is the reason why you all are here today, because of it helps, because of increased customer expectations, increased competition, and I'm sure all of you are feeling more demand coming from the business side of your organizations as a result of this. Continuous delivery results in higher customer satisfaction. It allows you to deliver faster innovation. That innovation comes in forms of ways that you interact with those customers, but it also is the ability to interact with those customers with much of the traditional data and systems that you have in place today. It's not about throwing any of those away. It's about working with those systems, and because that's the real value you're going to be able to deliver to those end users. Continuous delivery improves quality. Why? Because it's a repeatable process that you can version, that you can make changes to, and ensure that as you deliver that software, you're delivering more and more confidence in the quality of that software, because your testing now is becoming more and more automated. Not something you're going to do overnight, but over time you'll be able to automate more and more of the entire process. This will deliver higher levels of confidence, higher levels of quality. And finally, continuous delivery does reduce costs. It reduces costs because of the fact that you are taking a lot of the people part of it out of the process, because you're taking that experience that those people have and you're putting it into the delivery process and the automation that goes along with it. It helps you to speed that, helps you to utilize the people in more effective ways to deliver new features and new innovations that deliver more revenue to the organization. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Steve Harris. Actually, we're going to take a break right now, aren't we? Yes. We have a break.